How is everyone doing today?
Very good.
Good. So I have a question for you. How many of you, by show of hands, have ever been asked the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Most everyone. So this is a question that people started asking me from a very young age. Most of the time in school, people would say, Stacey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my response to this question, first of all, was, okay, define grown up. Does grown up mean 18? Does it mean 25? Does it mean 50? Does it mean 80? Define grown up. And then the other issue that I kind of had with this question was, a lot of times people said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Implying that I could only really pick one thing. There was only one thing that I could be, and I had to know what that thing was. And then in school, I took issue with this question too, because there were a lot of things that I wanted to be, and I wasn't really sure how I would narrow it down to just one thing. How could I pick one thing from a young age that I wanted to do for the rest of my life? And so I was lucky because I grew up in a state called Arizona in the United States, right next to California, and I grew up to a middle-class family. And I have a brother who's 2 years older than me and two great parents who met in the accounting department at IBM. And I was lucky that they worked at IBM because at a young age, when people were asking me this question, what do you want to be? My parents kind of said, explore some things from time to time, and then once college comes around, you're going to have to hone in and pick what you want to major in and what you want to do for the rest of your life. But use this time to explore. And at a very young age, my parents brought home this device. It was the first computer that we had ever gotten in our home, and my parents were able to get a discount because they worked at IBM. And as part of this exploration, my parents said, Stacey, you can have 30 minutes a day on this device. You can spend 30 minutes a day doing whatever you want, but explore using this, but 30 minutes is all you get. And at first, I started playing video games, as I think a lot of young kids do. And as time went on, I started asking myself, I'm playing these video games, but what would it take for me to actually go and create a video game? Someone had this idea for this game that I'm playing, how could I go and create my own? And so with that kind of mindset of curiosity, I started searching the internet, and I realized if I wanted to play video games, I was going to learn how to code. And so as time went on, in middle school and then in high school, I started using my 30 minutes a day to teach myself to code. And as I started getting into it, my brother would sit down with me and he would say, this is really cool. I want to learn this too. And then the two of us would start spending 30 minutes, an hour learning how to code. And finally, one day, as we had been learning, we went to my parents and we said, rather than kind of graduating from high school and then going to get an internship, we've been learning with these skills. We think that we want to go and start a business. We want to build a website of our own where people can come to it and learn something or do something. And the idea that we had at the time was we wanted people to be able to store all their usernames and passwords in one website, because how many of us have ever forgotten that username and password? I see a lot of people sticking up both hands. And so we said, we want to go start this business that allows people to store these usernames and passwords online. We've been learning how to code. We want to go do this. And now in my household, this is somewhat unacceptable because from a very young age, again, my parents had this expectation that you're going to go to elementary school, you're going to go to middle school, you're going to go to high school, you're going to get a college degree. While you're in college, you're going to work an internship, and then you're going to get an entry-level job and start working your way up the corporate ladder. So when my brother and I went to our parents saying we want to start this business, the first thing my dad said was, if you want to start a business, you need to move out of the house and learn how to be financially independent. So my brother and I talk about this a little bit, and then we decide, you know what? We should go ahead and do this. We've got one summer of freedom, as we thought of it. we want to go and get outside of our comfort zone, learn something new, and try this idea, starting this business. And so my brother and I decide to start looking online, and we look for apartments. And we knew that we wanted to be in California because that's where all the innovation was happening. So we looked up apartments, and we found one in South Central Los Angeles. And in that apartment, it was listed online for $900 US dollars for every month that we were in it. And it was 2-bedroom. So my brother and I started doing math, and we were like, all right, $900, 2 bedrooms. If we rent out one of the bedrooms, that'll knock our price down to $450. And if we split that $450 between the two of us, it's $225. So doing the math, we realized we could afford to go and live in this apartment for 3 months in the summer and start this business. So the day after I graduated from high school, my brother and I packed up our bags, and we moved to South Central Los Angeles, moved into this apartment where we had rented out one of the other rooms. And for that entire summer, my brother and I hunkered down on building the prototype for the business that we called My Social Cloud, allowing people to store these usernames and passwords for all their sites. And first we started just drawing out what we wanted the website to look like, and then we took that drawing and actually started coding and built the first version of the website. And as we were doing this every day, one day I went online as I was kind of eating my breakfast cereal, and I went onto Twitter. And I saw a tweet come through my feed from this guy named Richard Branson. And now, how many people know who Richard Branson is? Okay, so most people. For those who don't, Richard Branson started something called the Virgin Group. So if you've ever heard of Virgin Media, Virgin Galactic, Virgin Trains, he started those companies. And he's a really well-known entrepreneur, so I saw this tweet come through my feed, and it said, enjoy intimate cocktails plus 2 parties in Miami, $2,000 to charity. And then you can probably see the next tweet gave an email address. And I saw this come through my feed, and my first thought was, I want to meet this guy. He's one of the world's best-known entrepreneurs. I want to go meet him. So I took that email address and put it into my Gmail, and I started emailing, and I said, my name is Stacey Ferreira. I'm starting a business with my brother. I'm 18 years old, so I'm not legally old enough to drink cocktails with you in the United States. But I would absolutely love to come and meet you and learn about how you grew your businesses so that I can learn how to grow mine. I sent off this email. And then I get a response a few hours later from his secretary. And she says, great. If you and your brother want to donate $4,000, and you can be in Miami in 48 hours, then you can meet with him. Now, remember, broke, about to be college students, no money. Miami is all the way on the other side of the United States, and we don't have much time. So I did the only thing that I could really think of to do at the time, which was pick up the phone and call mom and dad. And I said, and this was back in 2011, so I said, hey, mom and dad, I know that you don't really know what Twitter is, but there is this amazing opportunity to go meet Richard Branson in Miami. Can I borrow $4,000? Now, you all kind of know a little bit about my parents so far in this story, so you might be able to guess what my dad said back on the other end of the phone, which was, Stacey, you need to write a proposal for me. Why do you need the money? Where is the money going? And most importantly, I want a spreadsheet with a payment plan of how you're going to pay me back if I decide to loan you the money. So I'm looking at my watch, and time is ticking down. So I sit at the computer, and I'm typing up this proposal for my dad. I write it up. I send it off to him. And a few hours later, I get a phone call from him. And he says, all right, walk me through this proposal. Pitch it to me. So I pitched the proposal to my dad, and at the end of the call, he says, all right, I'll call you back in 30 minutes. Hangs up the phone. 30 minutes later, gives me a call back, and he says, Stacey, here's the deal. 2 options. Option number 1, I will loan you the $4,000 with the one stipulation that you have to pay me back every dollar of that $4,000 by the time you step foot on college campus in 3 months. Option number 2, you don't take the loan. It's a lesson in money management. So me being the optimistic person that I am, I said, all right, I'm going to take the loan, and I'm going to fly to Miami and meet with him. So my brother and I take this loan from our dad, we fly to Miami, keeping an open mind about the whole situation. And going into Miami, we really only had one goal out of that event, which was we want to get this guy's personal email address so that we can create a relationship with him that extends beyond just the 2 days that we have in Miami. So my brother and I fly there, and in Miami, there were 2 nights of events. The first night was a room of all the people who had responded to the tweet. And to my surprise, there were only 18 people that showed up. I had asked his secretary after the event, I said, hey, so how many slots did you have for folks to come? And she said, we had 25. So every single person that came to the event responded to that tweet. And that was kind of amazing to me, that initially when I had responded, I thought there would be hundreds of emails flooding, if not thousands of emails flooding of people wanting to go, but every single person who had emailed got in. So we spent those 2 nights getting to meet with Branson, telling him a little bit about who we were, the idea that we were working on, and then learn from him and just absorb all the things that he was saying over the course of those 2 nights. And after the end of the second night, my brother, again with this goal in mind, we went up to Branson and we said, can we have your email address? The one that goes to you, not your secretary. And he wrote it down on a piece of paper. And I'll never forget, because then my brother took that piece of paper and he goes over to his secretary and is like, is this really his email address? Gotta double check. She said, yes, it is, so keep it close. So after that, we flew back to South Central Los Angeles, more motivated than ever before to work on our idea. We finished up the prototype, launched the initial version of My Social Cloud, got a lot of feedback from initial friends, families, and customers, and then we started saying, all right, we want to take this business to the next level. So we had a ton of questions just about how we would do that. And so we drafted up an email to Branson, and we said, here's a list of questions that we have about growing our business. Can you help us answer these? Branson sent back an email to us, and he said, these are the right questions. These are great questions. Let me introduce you to my friend Jerry Murdoch. And Jerry runs a venture capital firm in the United States called Insight Venture Partners. And just a few weeks later, Jerry got on a plane and flew out to South Central Los Angeles to meet with my brother and I. Jerry sat down with us and we asked him a bunch of these questions that we had, and he asked us a bunch of questions back too. He was like, let's run through your business model, your pricing model, what's your go-to-market strategy, how many people are on the team, you're 18 years old, are you going to go to college, what's the deal? And we answered all these questions. And that night, Jerry said, I want to take you guys out to dinner. So my brother and I went out to dinner with Jerry. And at dinner, Jerry said, I've got a deal for you guys. I like what you've been working on. I like the idea. I think this thing has legs. So 2 options. I talked to Branson, I talked to my friend Alex Welch. Option number 1, we'd like to invest $1.2 million into your business to help you grow it. Option number 2, you don't take the deal. So you know me at this point, and I love those deals. So we decided to accept the money, and at 18 years old, had raised that $1.2 million to start growing this business. And rather than kind of going that traditional path of going to college, I decided that I wanted to take a different path, which was learn by building my business. And this became the motto over the course of the next few years as we were building my social cloud, which was try, fail, learn, repeat. And we cycled through this as quickly as we could to learn, iterate, grow, and build this business. Make a little bit of a long story short, we built the business over the course of the next few years, and in 2013, a company that we were working with approached us and said, "We love the technology that you've been building, we love what you guys are working on, and we think that it would work really, really well in our suite of products." So in 2013, decided that we would take yet another deal, and my brother and I sold my social cloud to Reputation.com in the Bay Area and moved up to the San Francisco Bay Area. Once we moved up there and we had sold the company, a lot of people came back to me, and the question that kind of haunted me came back, which was, "Stacey, now you're 20 years old, you've just sold your first business, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I found myself having to ask this question again of, okay, what is it that I really want to do? So I went through this period of soul searching, and there were really two ways that I did it. The first was I sat down with a bunch of young people from across the globe, and I asked them, what is it that you want to do in your future, and how are you going about doing that? And I teamed up with a friend of mine, Jared Kleinert, to publish this book back in 2015 called 2 Billion Under 20 that highlights the stories of the 2 billion people on Earth who are 20 and under 20 years old and how it is they choose to do what it is they choose to do when it comes to work. And one of the things that was really, really kind of amazing to me was that the way that work is changing, the way that the world is working is changing. And that was really apparent in publishing this book. And after I started talking to all these young people about the way that they view the future and the way that they view what they're going to do throughout the course of their career, it started making me question, did every generation think this way? So I went back and I had a conversation with my grandma, and I asked her, I said, "Grandma, how is it that you chose to do what you chose to do?" And my grandma worked 42 years in a factory in the United States, and she said, it came down to one thing: what was going to pay the bills? And then I started talking to my mom, and my mom's career looked a little bit different. She worked 4 or 5 jobs before she'll retire. And for her, she said it was kind of a hybrid. It was a mix. It was what's going to pay the bills, but also what am I passionate about? What am I good at? So kind of a little bit more freedom and flexibility in what she can do. And then I started talking to my generation. And our careers, again, looked a little bit different. A lot of times people worked multiple jobs all at once, and there was a lot more freedom and flexibility in what people wanted to do. And people said, it's not just about paying the bills. In a lot of cases, it's more about what I'm passionate about than even making money. And that was a really fascinating concept to me, that a lot of people in my generation that I talked to through 2 Billion Under 20 said, I would much rather work on something that impacts the world in a positive way than make a big paycheck. And so in looking at that, I realized the future of work really is changing. The things that people prioritize are making an impact, having freedom, having flexibility, being able to pick and choose exactly when and where they work. And as I was looking at this, I started realizing that today a lot of industries that exist are still in this old model of working. If you look at retail, for example, you look at restaurants, you look at the hospitality industry, a lot of times the way that we tell people to work today is you have a schedule, you come in and work at this time to that time, and then you leave. And you work at that company for a set duration of time, and then you quit that job and go on to another job. But the reality is that the way we work is changing. Things are becoming more fluid. As you saw in the other diagram, people are working multiple jobs all at the same time. And so I decided that what I wanted to do when I grew up in this next chapter was start another company all around building flexible work. So now the company that I'm running, Forge, is building software that empowers people to be able to pick and choose exactly when and where they work, particularly for hourly jobs. And so one of the things that I want to kind of leave you all with today is that the way the world is working is changing. And my story is just one example of this. But we're having to reinvent ourselves time and time and time again with the speed of technology. So what I do when I'm 20 years old will probably look radically different than what I do when I'm 50. So the thing that I'll challenge all of you to today, rather than asking yourself, asking people that you mentor, or nieces and nephews, rather than asking what do you want to be when you grow up, ask them, what are all the things that you want to explore throughout your career? And then give them the flexibility to go and explore all of those things. Thank you.